within the diaspora and hear what's on our minds. It's live at 5 on Fit 96.7 fitfmja.com.
Destigmatize, the Western Regional Health Mental Wellness radio program, right here on Fit FM 96.7, every Thursday at 6 p.m. Destigmatize, to raise mental awareness and reduce stigma and discrimination through education, discussions, and highlights. Join us for lived experience interviews, to learn from the experts, for the Brainwaves Educational Focus segment, and Your Time, where you get answers to your questions. With host Dr. Lisbeth Hossman, psychiatrist. So join us every Thursday at 6 p.m. for Destigmatize on Fit FM 96.7. Brought to you by the Western Regional Health Authority, Department of Mental Wellness.
That's just what I seek to find. Where are you now? When darkness seems to win, I just need some solitude. Where are you now? When the world is crumbling. Oh, I hear you say, look up, child. Hey, look up, child. Hey, where are you now? When all I feel is doubt. Oh, where are you now? When I can't figure it out. Oh, I hear you say.
Welcome. We're right here on Destigmatize on Fit FM 96.7, or you may be on Facebook, on YouTube, on Friends Who Love Fit FM, on fitfmja.com, and we want to welcome you to Destigmatize. I'm your host, Lisabeth Crossman, and I'll be taking through today's program. We want to raise the awareness of persons living with mental health conditions and those who may not be doing so well because of how we have been treating them. And it may just be quite subtle or be quite open, but sometimes when we stigmatize, when we discriminate, it means that our thoughts, our behaviors, and our actions allow persons to feel less of themselves, less important, feel as if they are not human beings, and so it doesn't allow our communities to work well together. But if we recognize that any one of us can develop a mental illness, any one of us can be in that position, then it means that it will allow us to understand how we need to be treated, and if we are treating ourselves as how we should be treated, with dignity, with respect, and understanding that this illness doesn't control us, but instead we can control the illness. It means that we're better able to manage and we're better able to take care of each other. So I want to welcome you to the program. We want you to talk with us. We want you to communicate with us and tell us, what your thoughts are. And so we have our WhatsApp lines that are open, and these numbers are 876-478-9144 or 876-513-6668. So that's 876-478-9144 or 876-513-6668. And so we ask you to just send us a note, tell us how you're doing, tell us what's happening, what your comments are with regards to the program, so that we can have that line open for discussion. And also others may really want to hear this answers to the same questions or the comments that are given. And so it will allow others to have a better understanding of mental health condition. So we want to welcome our special guest this evening, and we want to welcome Reverend Dr. Devere Nugent. He is the pastor of the East Queen Street Baptist Church, and he will be our special guest this evening. Welcome, Reverend Nugent.
Dr. Crossman, good evening. Good evening to the Fit team.
Good evening to you, sir. And let us be the first to congratulate you from Fit FM and from the program Destigmatize on your accomplishment, Reverend Doctor.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much.
Right. So we want to jump into what we're talking about this afternoon. And we want to look at mental health and how does the church fit in? Because when we speak about mental health, we're speaking about how do persons cope with the normal stresses of life? How do they learn and work in terms of life? What it is that they have accomplished? We want to look at, are they able to realize their potentials or their abilities, and are they able to contribute positively to society? So when we think about mental health, we're talking about that state of well-being in which persons are able to do this, but we also want to recognize that it does exist on a continuum. And because it exists on a continuum, and a very complex one, because we're all different persons, so different persons are going to present in different ways. But one of the I shouldn't say not challenges, but one of the things that we need to remember, the thing that we need to remember is that the whole concept of wellness and of healing started with the church. And the priest was the person that all persons ill would go to, and they would offer their assessment and diagnosis and management, and then persons would, move on from here. So I want to start with that in mind, that context of mental health being originally looked on by from the church's perspective, and I want to bring it into focus in terms of looking at how it is that we are managing now, how does the church fit in, and how we can work together to enable our communities to be better communities. So we're going to start in terms of, we always say that the church is a place for sick people. Sick people come to the church. How is it that we are managing now mental health conditions, or how do we take care of, and not only mental health conditions, but mental health, looking at wellness? How is it that we are doing it in the churches now, from your perspective?
That's a mouthful there, Dr. Crossman.
Yeah, so we can start bite by bite. Yes.
That's a mouthful there. I think it was in 2020, I happened to have been in a space preaching.
Reverend Doctor, you're sounding a bit muffled. I'm not so sure if you can, I don't know what's it.
Am I better?
Much better, sir. Our Madam Producer is agreeing with me. Yes.
The producer is doing a good job this evening.
Yes, excellent job as always.
Madam Producer, am I being heard now?
Yes, you are being heard now. Are you hearing us?
All right. I'm hearing you.
Great.
In 2020, I was in San Andres.
Right.
And I'd gone to San Andres to preach. And there was a young lady who told me at the time that she was not attending church.
Right.
And upon questioning as to why she wasn't attending church,
right,
she said to me that her understanding of church is that church should be like a university.
Okay.
That each time you go to church,
yes,
you should be learning something.
Okay.
And what you learn from church,
yes,
or at church, should make you better, and it should make you be able to function better in the society.
Okay.
I've never forgotten it.
Yes.
And I don't think I'll ever forget it.
Okay.
Because I think it is a very powerful statement
mm-hmm.
About church. We have categorized church, and we tend to say that church is a hospital for the sinner,
mm-hmm.
and not a hotel for the saints.
Oh.
right? But we have to understand where church is at, and that there has been the demarcation between what is seen as physical and what is seen as spiritual.
Okay.
And that line that has existed, there are some churches that would say we are dealing only with the spiritual.
Right.
The other physical aspects under which things like mental health might just fall are very often placed on the curb and are not seen necessarily as a function of church.
Okay.
If you can't name it, claim it, heal, and pray for it and heal it,
Yes.
then it's not seen as a part of the church's. Some people don't see it as a part of the church's responsibility.
But that's
however.
Yes. Go ahead, sir.
Hello.
I was going to come in there because a lot of the times we normally speak about the pathways to care. And when persons are having mental health conditions, it's very interesting that you mentioned that some persons would have kicked mental health to the curb and not consider it as a part of a spiritual matter. Because a lot of times when persons believe that they have a mental illness or something may be going on wrong with the brain, it is the first thing that comes that this is a spiritual matter. So it's either that they go to church and get prayer, or they are going to the healer before coming to, the physical, the medical person.
But there are those of us who understand,
right,
that the first, especially within the church,
right,
one of the first signs of a mental illness,
yes,
is an exorbitant amount of spirituality.
Oh, that's very interesting.
When someone comes and all of a sudden they are more spiritual than everybody else in the church, it is very often the first sign that there is a mental issue taking place. So they are better at preaching, they're better at evangelism, and they are more powerful and they want to do more than everybody else. That's very often the telltale sign that there's a mental illness going on.
And that is, I'm going to probably have to disagree with you, Reverend Nugent, because we it may just be an over exuberance, but probably not the telltale sign of a mental illness. So yeah.
Well, forgive my bad language.
I don't want them to kick you out of the church, sir. Sorry. Okay, but go ahead. So you were saying that excess spirituality is always seen as there's something may be happening differently.
Whenever that begins to happen, then we as pastors we tend to take note.
Okay.
Because it is suggesting that something might not be so right.
Okay.
And very often, when you check it out, then you see the results of that, right?
Yes.
But I think if I'm trying to come back to the substantive question that you asked in terms of how do we manage a church?
Yes.
How do we manage a church? Right? There is the church is grounded in faith,
Right.
And the whole matter of faith. And especially the definition that says faith is the substance of things hoped for,
yes,
and the evidence of things not seen.
Right.
Offers to congregants a semblance of hope.
Okay.
All the time.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And that it doesn't matter how bad a situation might be, there is still hope, and it is not as dark. It is not as dreary. It is not as bad. There can be another way up, and there can be another way out.
Right.
So faith becomes the first building block in terms of helping congregants and helping persons to just deal with the pressures of life as we undertake them and as we encounter them.
Okay. and the question comes though, Reverend Nugent, how do we, because and it's very important that you recognize, or that we recognize, that hope is very significant, because that's something that somebody will cling to, and you can use that, to help to guide a person, even in our mental health counseling. So I'm just wondering, if persons have lost hope, how does the church manage that? How do we deal with that?
Well, well, well that's a very interesting question. In that, we are hoping that they would not get to that point where hope is totally gone. But if you have lost hope, it is a constant reminder that, in God, in how we have arrived at where we are at, trying to understand the antecedent of where we have come from,
right,
with God, and how God has helped us to this point and to this
right,
juncture.
yes,
With affirmation, God has helped us over these many months, many moons, many moments, juncture. Then God is still able to move us beyond that.
right,
But it is just an attempt, the constant attempt for people to continue to see that it doesn't matter how dark it gets, hope is always to be kept alive,
right,
and kept, and to be used as a tool to keep us going forward.
right. One of the things that we tend to focus on is that a lot of times
You're a little low. I'm not hearing you very well.
Okay, are you hearing me better now? Are you hearing me better now? Hello?
A little bit better.
A little bit
a lot
better.
of frying on the line.
A lot of frying. Okay. Let's hope that it will clear up soon. One of the things that we want to look at is that the church is in a space that and it caters for all ages. How do we ensure that we are meeting the needs, and I'm going to look at mental health needs from the church's perspective for all these ages? What are some of the things that we're involved in to ensure that we are meeting these needs?
Well, the church, the line is cracking badly. I'm sorry.
Oh, you are very clear to us, and we are not hearing the cracking at all. I'm not so sure what's happening.
I'm not sure what's happening. I'm hearing you, but you're very low. But I'll try and answer.
Right.
Now, the church, one of the things that we have to remember, that the church is not just about a Saturday morning worship experience or a Sunday morning service. It's not just about Bible studies. But the church is broken down at all levels into smaller groups. So already, once you come to church, you're a part of a Sabbath school class, you're part of a Sunday school class, you're part of a youth group, you're part of a young adults group, you're part of a women's group, a men's group, and a number of churches have moved into the direction of things such as you have bereavement groups, right? Bereavement groups, widows group, or widows, and those kinds of groups that are geared towards helping people to cope with the realities that they encounter on a day-by-day basis.
Right.
So most churches would have a family life department,
yes,
or a healing and counseling department,
yes,
and that healing and counseling department does a lot of work outside of the faith. We don't see it, and it is not advertised every weekend at church. But some of these healing and counseling groups or family life departments, they have, for example, prayer lines. Where somebody can call, and if you call a number, and if you call the number, there is somebody there who will speak with you and pray with you. The person might not be the best counselor. But if the matter becomes more serious,
Right.
then the necessary referrals can take place. But the churches do have a lot of smaller groups within the churches
Right.
that are at work and that are providing the kind of a support to the age-specific groupings in the congregations and in the communities.
And I'd love to know, is it that we're able to evaluate what we're doing and to say that we have seen 20% of our children who were coming to Sunday school and having mental health challenges, 10% of these were referred. We were able to manage some of these in our congregation, in our different settings. Is this some of the things that we are doing? Are we able to document and to show that these are some of the needs that are being met, and they are real needs that perhaps they won't come to mental health at all because of the stigma and discrimination that occurs there, but they would come in, they would call the prayer line, or they would come in to talk to a counselor there? Do we have that type of documentation that we do?
Well, I cannot speak for other congregations.
Yes.
Right? But I can speak about the congregations that I have served and I am serving. There is a privacy slash secrecy and the maintenance of people's integrity and people's humanity, which so we don't have the kind of a mechanism that says at the end of every quarter we go back and review. We have seen 5 people this month. We have seen 15 people this month. And what were the outcomes? We probably don't have that in that organized way, because at the same time we're trying to preserve and to protect the dignity and the humanity of those who will come to us.
We lost you a little bit.
From time to time.
Okay, so are you suggesting that when we do the evaluation, we would not be protecting their dignity and humanity, or when we collect this data, we won't do that?
No. It is a matter of the number of the churches are not really equipped to keep, for example, data of that nature in an environment that is not prone to revealing sensitive matters about individuals that we see. Okay.
But there are different ways that we can get around it without revealing information about individuals. But I'm just looking at ways in which we are able.
And I think just listening to you on the matter suggests that it could be, for example, is one of the things that I could speak to the congregations I serve with about, in terms of some of these things.
And I tell you why, Reverend Doctor, because when it is that we go back and we review what it is that our targets were, what it is that our needs were, and we are saying to the mental health services that, listen, there really is a growing need within communities. And if we look at, and I'm sure the community that you exist in as a congregation, you can see some of the remnants of from slavery that were never addressed in terms of the social determinants, the access to health care, access to good living conditions. We have broken so many of the right to a basic good life, for people and our children that are coming up, that puts them at risk to being really stressed out. And we know that a lot of them may not reach to getting the help until it is later in life, when some of their brain development may have happened, would have happened, and so they are traumatized by certain things that are happening, how do we know that this is happening? How do we tell that this is really happening? And how do we intervene? What are the interventions that we have? And that sort of segue into what are some of the interventions? You mentioned things that may happen within the church, but are these things also happening outside of the church in terms of interventions that you may do for your congregants, and not even congregants, for the community in which you exist?
No, well, all right. So one of the things that I wanted to just piggyback before we segue.
Okay.
Just to respond to you in reminding you.
Yes.
That the absence of systems and structures, especially within church, we have to remember,
yes,
that church operates 99.9% of the times on a voluntary basis.
I want to suggest, sir, that perhaps also the other organizations, government may also have some of that too. Given what is anyway, we won't go into that politics on the air.
Well, I would say to you that the church operates.
Yes.
On a 99.99% voluntary basis.
Right.
And that level of voluntarism.
Right.
Very often does not give us the ability to find the best, or I want to say the best.
Okay.
What we are working with are the people who are willing.
Right.
We're working. We have to work with the people who are willing,
but the qualifications. But the qualifications.
And therefore, we are not able to do the kinds of impact that we would like. Right.
Yes.
But again, for whatever we can do.
Yes.
It is a relevant and an important gap that is being filled.
Right.
Because can you imagine what would happen in the public space if the doors of the church should be closed across this country? As far as some of these services are concerned.
Right.
So I want to lay that on the table for contemplation.
Right. I want you to also contemplate, though, Reverend Doctor, that there are organizations that do offer to train persons and give them those skills that you think that they may lack, in helping other persons. And so that's one of the ways in which we can collaborate with our health ministry and with our other health organizations to ensure that we can equip our congregants. And it may not be those that are necessarily involved in these specific ministries, but we when you look at how the services are structured, there is what we call the informal service. And what the informal service is, those are, you go to the hairdresser and you have a problem and you talk and she say, boy, sister, let me tell you, this is where me feel, And so she give you some advice and some people say, yeah, that sounds true, These are the persons that we can equip, the barbers, the shopkeepers, the bartenders, So I'm saying that we may believe that persons do not have, and yes, they don't have, but can we find partnerships together so that we can move the discussions even further by equipping individuals with these skills, basic counseling skills that can enable them to do more. So I'm putting those cards on the table as well. Have we lost you, sir?
No, you have not.
I'm listening to you. Paralyzed. Okay, right. So yes. So I'm just wondering. These are some of the discussions I believe that we can have, because as I mentioned before, these are the individuals that people are going to come to. Sister, I have a burning concern. I'm not feeling good and I need somebody to talk to. And they may feel more comfortable talking to this church sister, this church brother, this leader within the church. How can we equip our leaders in being able to offer a little bit more than saying, boy, that sound like a psychiatrist thing or a psychologist thing. And then, then start to, boy, I mean, I have the money and, so things like that. So how can we work together? So I'm saying that don't let us not say that, because we understand the volunteerism and if we can equip our volunteers with these skills, I believe that we can, do things a little bit better and move forward. Any thoughts on that, sir?
No, that's fine. I think you've said it well.
Right. And one of the things I've noticed, I'm very concerned about our children and young people. First, because I put them first because the development of the brain is happening, and how. So what are the strategies that you think that are in place, or what do you think we can do even a little bit more to help our children and young persons? We notice that there's a fall off in the children coming out to church. Some churches are closing. I just read that like churches in Germany lose 560,000 church members per year, and so the church is in risk of closing. So how do we? What is happening? I know that. What are your thoughts as to what is happening and what is causing all of this, and how can we? Let's say that they don't come to church, but there is a need out there to get them involved and to get them a little bit more looking at some of the social issues. How do we do that?
Well, one of the things that we have to be careful of,
yes,
is when we quote what's happening in the global north as far as church is concerned, without juxtaposing that against what is happening in the global south.
Okay.
Because while the global north has seen a contraction in church, and especially as far as Christianity is concerned, the global south has seen an exponential rise.
Okay.
So if you look at what's happening in places like Latin America,
right,
and I mean, what has been said is that what we have to do is to look what is happening south of the equator, and counterbalance that with what is happening north of the equator, right?
Okay.
Suffice it to say, though, that in Jamaica, I think the statistics will show you that what is contracting are the mainline denominations. The mainline denominations have shown over the last 20 or so years some amount of contraction. Right. While the newer denominations continue to show some amount of robustness. Right. Plus, there are a number of other smaller non-denominational type churches that have come up. Okay. And are pulling people from the more traditional churches into them. So I am quite sure that here in Jamaica, that the number of churches that we have continue to grow every year. It's just that the mainline churches are no longer seen as the pride of place as far as religious offering is concerned. Okay. What I cannot speak about what's happening in the newer churches. I cannot speak about what's happening even within some of the more the newer churches, as well as the non-traditional churches. I can speak about what's happening, for example, in the Jamaica Baptist Union. And if you look at the Jamaica Baptist Union, right, again, there are several approaches that the church takes, and there are several ministry offerings that have been given. So you can look at the Christian Education Department of the Jamaica Baptist Union, and it's work there in terms of children,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of children mental health,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how children are socialized, in terms of what it does in terms of education
Right.
throughout the country. Then secondly, you gotta look at,
Before
for
you
example,
move, before you move from there, Reverend Nugent, I was thinking, when you speak about what they do in terms of children mental health or children are socialized, what exactly are you speaking about? What are they doing?
we're talking. So we're talking about the programs that are available,
Right.
right? So take for example, Christian education,
Mm-hmm.
along with youth department, offers
Mm-hmm.
every year
Yes.
camps and conferences.
Okay. So camps.
And
Okay.
these camps and conferences
Mm-hmm.
are age specific,
Yes.
and they are used as vehicles
Yes.
of reaching the youth and reaching the children
Mm-hmm.
by pulling them out of their environment
Mm-hmm.
for a week, taking them to the campsite,
Mm-hmm.
and making this attempt
Mm-hmm.
to steer
Mm-hmm.
the thinking within a very well cultured spiritual and social space,
Right.
right?
Yes.
That's one of the work that has been done, and I can tell you that
So
that is done
yes.
throughout so many other denominations.
Right.
If you look at what happens, and while it might not be as strong as we would like to see it be right now,
Right.
the Boys and Girls Brigade,
Right. Right.
and what that does in terms of helping with self-esteem and
Yes.
helping to uncover
Right.
leadership and
Yes.
helping
Yes.
for persons to cemented in social work.
Right.
Then you're in the summer
Yes.
now,
Yes.
you're going to talk about the vacation Bible schools,
Yes.
and so on and so on. So there's a
Right.
plethora
Yes.
of things that have been done.
Yes. Do you think that we are meeting the needs of our children and adolescents? Because if it is that the statistics has shown that in Jamaica, well, worldwide, it gives that 10%, 20% of our children are affected, and then most are showing symptoms by 14 years old, and 10 years on, they have still not been diagnosed, their needs have not been met. And in Jamaica, the studies are showing that we have seen increase in depression, in anxiety, in bullying. Are we meeting these needs?
But what the surveys would also show, Dr. Crossman,
Yes.
is that while there is a rise in bullies and while there's a rise in depression among youngsters,
Yes.
there is a decline
Right.
in their attendance and participation in church.
So that's what I'm asking, how because if these things that you're mentioning sound very exciting, camps and VBS and what's the other, Boys and Girls Brigade, that's what I'm asking, what are some of the root causes of this decline in our children coming out to these spaces?
So number one, I mean, and I hope you have the entire evening to discuss that. Because the truth of the matter is that, as Dr. Virgil Taylor would say,
yes,
church has been moved from the center to the margin.
Oh.
Church has been moved from the center to the margin.
Tell us more. Tell our listeners more. Yes.
Yeah, what we mean by that is there was a time when the community revolved around the church.
Right.
And therefore, a parent would have rather for a child to be involved in church,
yes,
than going to pep lessons on a Sunday.
Yes. Oh.
If you look at what's happening now,
yes,
you're going to if that becomes a choice,
yes,
then the parent is going to send the child to a pep lesson, yes, over Sunday school.
Or Sabbath school,
and that kind of or Sabbath school,
yes,
and that kind of a movement has caused some of the issues we're having within the society. So while some of these things, you see some of these things, and the social scientists will tell you that these things are on the rise. you must also recognize that the church, we have, as a society, moved the church from the center to the margin. And the church is just one of the offerings now,
And
and no longer the offering.
offering. And probably you could tell us, Reverend Nugent, from where you sit, what it is that the church provided at that center that could hold the youngster, that would prevent, and probably you may even link it to the early onset of violence or criminality or criminal behaviors in our young people, the use of substances quite early. What it is that happened at the church that held these persons within that sphere and caused a certain type of socialization that would have prevented some of the challenges that we are seeing now.
Okay. All right, let me take a wide brush and then I try and narrow that down. The last census which came out,
yes,
the parish of Trelawney was said to have been the parish that most people across the entire Jamaica,
yes,
describe themselves as either being a Baptist or associated with the Baptist Church.
yes, okay,
all right,
yes,
the parish of Trelawney. I mean, when the census was concluded,
what census was this?
On average, in Trelawney, describe themselves as Baptist or associated with the Baptist Church than any other
denomination
parish in the country.
Okay, this is a statin.
I mean, Trelawney was the only parish that said that.
Yeah, this was a statin census.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the census,
all right.
the national census.
All right.
So,
the national census.
When you go back to the historical value of what Trelawney means,
yes,
in that way,
yes,
then Trelawney, you have to link Trelawney as well with being the free village capital of Jamaica.
Right.
That across the length and breadth of Trelawney,
yes,
13 of the communities,
yes,
13 communities in Trelawney came up out of the free village system.
Okay.
To include Kettering and Refuge,
yes,
and Granville and Sherwood Content,
okay,
and Bunkersville and those kinds of places.
Right.
So out of the free village system, what was happening at the time is that the church was involved in education. And the church was involved in land reformation and land ownership. And the church was involved in helping with representation. So what has happened is that, so take for example, most of the church schools that we have now are no longer controlled by churches. And I congratulate the Seventh-day Adventists who have weathered the storm in maintaining the handle on their churches, on their schools, right? But the Anglicans, the Methodists, the Baptists, what we have done with that is that we have leased these schools out to government. So the fact that we have begun to release so much of our social services, technically, to government has kind of alienated us. We have taken our hands off the levers and we have allowed the government to be involved in some of those nitty-gritty things. So again, go back to school where the curriculum is no longer guided by church, but it is now guided by what the government of Jamaica would want to implement. In fact, I don't know if you recall, there was a time when there was a contemplation that devotions were to be removed out of school. They were wasting time with devotions. Devotions, to the extent that some principals, in order to do it, started school outside of the regulation time. Because school ought to start at 8 o'clock. And there were those who were saying teaching should start at 8 o'clock. So get rid of the devotions. What the principals had to do was to step down the time to say school starts at 7:30 in order to maintain that devotion time in school. The church has released all of that, right? To the policies and positions of government. And so we do not have that level of influence in that kind of a space where we guide and where we create and where we find programs and plans that are that will promote the values
Mm-hmm.
that we think would help our children best.
Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. All right. So you mentioned the church being at that center and causing the what about in terms of criminality? How do you see the church as, the removal of the church from the center and being placed at the margin? Hope and probably not just criminality, but some of the social upheavals that we have seen in community.
One of the challenges I've had in moving from Falmouth to Kingston is now, and I say it all the time, is I pastor the Denhamtown Baptist Church as well, right? And every Sunday morning when I drive into Denhamtown, especially if I use the Spanish Town Industrial Terrace road, I have to drive past the police station. And every Sunday morning, I am met with the same sight of a congregation of women who are outside the police station, waiting to visit their loved ones who are incarcerated. And then you get to church, and in the service, you are asked to dedicate a baby. And I'm constantly faced with this struggle. What is it that has happened between where you were a baby,
yes,
to where now you're incarcerated?
Right.
What really has happened? And so many things,
right,
would have changed,
right,
in that period.
Yes.
And again, I say that the social changes that we have had, and the pace of the changes that we have had, continues to impact negatively upon our youngsters.
And what are the social changes that you're speaking about?
So take for example, how many of us would have probably watched TV 1 hour, 2 hours a week.
Yes.
1 hour, 2 hours a week.
Yes.
Our children today live behind a screen. They live behind a screen. And in fact, can I tell you what the minister said? There were 9,000 high-profile laptops given to high schools across the country. Another screen, because we are to integrate technology in the educational process.
Right.
Okay. So our children are living behind a screen.
But some would argue, Reverend Nugent, that this is the way the world is going. Do you want your child to be left behind?
I'm just pointing out to the social changes that are taking place.
Yes, but could it be that we need to have a balance, and probably parents or caregivers need to be able to create that balance? Or is it that we are saying that our parenting skills are also have also been affected by these social changes? So for example, to keep your child quiet, you give them the phone. You don't want them to disturb because you want to rest, so you give them the phone. They cry and you give them the phone. You don't want any noise. So are some of our parenting styles changing because of these issues?
And you're absolutely correct about that. Absolutely correct about it. But the truth of the matter is that a parent who can't pay a babysitter, if a parent who can't pay a babysitter, sometimes resort to some of these things as a means of just keeping a child occupied.
Yeah, but it also speaks to community, because before we could say next door, Miss Brown, you can baby can come over and stay. The community, the caring of the community was very important, an important role within our society. So I guess we are also looking at these other changes that have occurred. We have become very selfish, self-centered by ourselves.
It's not. Selfishness might would be a reasonable response. But people are just fearful. People are just fearful. I met a gentleman the other day who said to me, I would not take up a child, male or female, and offer him a ride to school because of the fear. The fear, right? And the converse is true. The fear that parents have in allowing their children to go next door. Because some of the things which happens with children, then they just innocently go next door. So there's a fear, there's a phobia that exists throughout the society, right? And I don't know if we have the time this evening to explore all of that, but there's a phobia.
So like
And the phobia is real. But, you know, there's one
Yes,
school
I'm
of
hearing
thought.
you.
There's one school of thought,
Right.
Dr. Crossman, that one of the reasons why we have more traffic on the streets of Kingston during school time,
Yes.
it is simply because parents are fearful
Yes.
that if I put my child on a taxi or on a bus,
Right.
public bus to get to school,
Yes.
he or she might not make it. So we carry them ourselves just to alleviate that fear.
Or probably not only not make it, but whatever happens on the journey too. You know, all the challenges that happens within the public transportation system. Then, you know, we become fearful. The drinking and the smoking and the explicit sexual behaviors. So
it's fear,
and it's frightening for parents. Yes, and I can see
and
that.
all of that, you know,
But,
all of that
yes.
is weighing heavily on the minds of our young people.
But yeah,
All of that.
Yeah. But Reverend Nugent, how do we go about fixing it? Because we have to
Again,
be
I
able.
believe and again, solutions are always important.
Yes.
Solutions are all.
And we can work together at these solutions. Yes.
Can give you probably 2 or 3 responses in terms of solutions.
All right.
One,
Yes, sir.
I think that we need to help our children to refocus and to recenter.
Okay.
And one of the things, and very often we speak and we compare ourselves as Jamaicans with a place like Singapore, and you hear it all the time.
Right.
But can I say to you, one of the things that we have not said is that no child leaves, especially in the Asian countries, leaves high school without the ability to fluently play an instrument. Fluently play an instrument. Okay? Now, if you look at the music programs across the schools in Jamaica, you'll recognize that we have not even begun to scratch the surface. And music is one of the ways in which the side of the brain that deals with logic is stimulated and developed.
Right. So,
especially when they're exposed to classical music. That's a fact.
Yeah.
The side of the brain that deals with math and logic is developed.
So is it that you're
That's
planning
a
to have a
fact.
program like that in your congregation?
I am just waiting for the Lord to open the door.
Yes, already
because
opened it.
I have been asking for I don't want just a program. I want a whole 50. I would love to see a whole 50-piece orchestra. And if there's somebody who wants to pray with me or bless me with the equipment, then the instrument, we would be very happy. Because it would be a game changer for the young people. I mean, when you travel to these international conferences and you see 8-year-olds and 7-year-olds who are fluent at playing a flute or a violin, fluent, that takes them through the world and that takes them for the rest of their lives. And that changes immediately the way we think and the way we behave.
Yes. Yes. Not
No,
to
number
hurt.
two,
Yes. Because we're running out of time,
no,
Reverend
no,
Doctor. Yes.
number two, the churches that say we are doing ministry will have to
Yes.
rethink what this ministry is.
Right.
Because we have to be careful that the ministry is not
Yes.
just self-serving, that we're seeking just to get more people to come to church. Okay? But we are genuinely interested in the development of people.
Right.
And we're genuinely interested in investing in them.
Yes.
Even if they don't come to our church tomorrow morning.
Yes.
So it might mean that I have to spend $500,000 to pull one youngster out of a depressed community for that person to go to school. But if you have changed that person's future, you have changed a generation.
Definitely.
That person might never come to your church. But you have to invest in people.
Right.
Sorry.
Yes. And number 3, we have a wrapping up time, sir. Number 3, you mentioned 3 points you wanted to. I think the third point would be to collaborate with the mental health services and other stakeholders.
The church, therefore, would now need to look at what other churches are doing.
Not only other churches, but other groups
we can create.
Other stakeholders, because we do have stakeholders within communities that are doing stuff. And I do believe that the church has a very important role to play in that collaboration.
I know you gotta go, but can I just say this?
Yes, sir. Yes.
I just think that the church has to also stop a little bit.
Yes.
We have to, and feed more people.
Yes, I agree totally.
Cook and feed more people.
Yes.
And if any minister of government might be listening to me, one of the things we can do to help inner city people, help people right now, is to call upon the churches, give the churches some food, and say cook a meal and give it to the community, even once a week.
Yes. So looking at what the needs are, and we're saying that because of hunger, a lot of persons are not doing well. They can't. The children not learning, and probably to start even a breakfast program too. You know, at least you'd have known that you'd have given them something. So if one church is doing breakfast, one can do lunch, one can do dinner. So yes, the churches can come together. Other groups can come together, because a lot of time we are all doing the same thing. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense when we do the same thing. Reverend Dr. Devere Nugent, what a pleasure it has been for you to be a part of Destigmatize. Quite an interesting conversation. Madam Producer is saying that you have to come back, and our comments on online also. Very, very excited about what it is that we can do. How can we raise the bar? How can we be the game changer? Ensure that the mental health, and not only mental, but the social health and all aspects of health of our children, young people, everybody, we are taking better care. And we can only do it if we work together, if we build communities together. Remember, there, but for the grace of God, I go. And there's no good health without good mental health. And we have to start looking in the mirror and really making sure that we can make the change. It only takes you and me. We're ending with my favorite Rondell Positive. So thank you very much, Reverend Nugent. Thank you very much, my listeners. You may be on Fit FM, ja.com, on the radio, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Friends Who Love Fit FM. We look forward to seeing you next week. And we thank Reverend Dr. Nugent for such a wonderful conversation. And we hope it doesn't stay here, but we're looking to hear about bigger and better things. Probably the orchestra in the next 6 months. Who to say? The answer is in the mirror.
No excuse. Walk in your calling. We are the change that we want to see. We can change the world.